Okay. I'd like to call to order the regular monthly meeting of January 28th, 2020. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Barbarulo,
Here.
Mrs. Favelovich,
Here.
Mr. Itkin,
Here.
Mrs. Mahan,
Present.
Ms. Quackenbush,
Here.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Here.
Mr. Santana,
Here.
Mr. Spindell,
Present.
Mr. Banta.
Here. New Jersey's open public meeting law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of, to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this fact, the Fair Lawn Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having a date, time, and place thereof distributed to the persons on the approved list, posted in the Fair Lawn Board of Education office, and sent to the Bergen Record and the Star Ledger. The announcement posting for the regular monthly meeting, along with the date, time, and place thereof, was distributed on January 11, 2021. The items to be discussed during the closed work session of January 28, 2021 may include personnel matters, student matters, legal matters, negotiations and or grievances, and tactics and techniques utilized in protecting public safety and property. Results of these closed session discussions will be made public as soon as possible. Public participation in the board meetings is 3 paragraphs. Ron's read it a million times already. It's on the website. It's in the newspapers. It's pretty simple, and you can just, if you want to attend the meeting remotely, you can do it through the website. Now, would you join me in a flag salute? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we're going to start the meeting. Turn it over to Nick, and I guess he's going to turn it over to Tim, but I'll let you work out the details. And it's our annual audit report. So,
Yeah. Tim, if you bear with me for 1 minute, I'm just going to go through my comments and then we're going to turn it over to you.
okay. Yeah, do yours first.
So yes, obviously we have Tim here to do an audit presentation. I'm going to bump him to the end of my comments. First, we are all set to open school on Monday. We will be returning to the hybrid schedule starting February 1st. As we watch the weather, which is our luck in Fair Lawn, that we have to watch an impeding snowstorm. But you know, it's different than any other day. But we are all set for Monday. And if it does snow, we will revisit at that time and look at the next day. But as of right now, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed because the weathermen are usually wrong. And hopefully everybody's here on Monday. With that being said, we will be having a work session in February, and we'll be going through these dates at the end of the meeting. So I'll recap it then. But I want to let you know at the work session in February, we will be doing a mid-year update of our district goals. We're very pleased. One of our district goals had to do with equity, and we will be having our new equity leadership team presenting at that meeting as part of one of our district goals. In addition to that, at our February board meeting, we will be doing a presentation on the soft border update. And our recommendations as a district to hopefully see soft borders go away for good. So that will be at the February board meeting. And also, I would like to wish Lisa Panaggia well in her retirement. As you can notice, she said, I am not coming. This is my last meeting, and I am starting retirement early as we welcome Denise here, our new director of HR. So we are thrilled that Denise and Lisa have been overlapping all week to help turnkey Denise and transition her into her new role. And it's been a great week for that to happen, especially with us reopening school on Monday and looking at all the curveballs they could throw in your way with that. The last thing is our school calendar. On our agenda is the proposed 21-22 school calendar for next school year. It's pretty straightforward. It's been part of everybody's agenda packet. It's been posted on the website for the last couple of days. We work with the association when it comes to presenting a school calendar to them. They look at it. We go back and forth, discuss it, and then before presenting it to the board for approval. The school calendar, the way Labor Day and Rosh Hashanah falls next year is it's like back to back. So what we did not want to do is start on September 9th. So we are starting on September 1st. We know that this school year is not to be desired for, the way that we've been in and out repeatedly. And the last thing we wanted to do is have our students start later in the school year. So we're making every effort to have PD September 1st, and we're only going to do 1 day of professional development with our staff and push the second day of professional development in October so that we could get our students starting right away on September 2nd. In addition to that, we are reinstituting the week-long February break. That was a promise that we had made when we were done with construction, that we would we would give the February break back so everybody could start ordering your Disney tickets now. That'll be back in the calendar. And then other than that, we get out a little bit earlier next year because we're starting earlier. So we're pleased with the calendar, and it's on here for discussion when we get to that point. So without further ado, unless Tim wants to rescind his retirement, this will be his last audit presentation for the district. And on behalf of the Fair Lawn Board of Education and the district, Tim, I want to thank you for your years of service. You've always been a class act and a professional, and you've always steered us in the right direction. And I want to thank you for that. And we wish we were all coming to Florida with you.
Thank you very much, Nick.
Which would probably be your worst nightmare, but.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know how many bedrooms I'm going to have, but we worked something out. Well, as always, let's start with the good news, and it's all good news. You know, there were no recommendations. You know, once again, you should be very proud of your financial and administrative staff who work very hard and conscientiously to maintain compliance with our numerous rules and regulations. My congratulations to them, and I'm really going to miss working with them because not everybody cooperates like your staff does. I thought what I would just quickly run through, because you know, if you looked at the audit report, it's obviously a voluminous document with all kinds of numbers and statements, et cetera, et cetera. But really what it comes down to is the one exhibit C1, which is your Fund 10, to your main budget account. And it looks like Brooke is going to post it
Yeah,
up there.
I'm going to pull it up for you. Yep.
All right. So I see we got it a little bit bigger and more legible, because actually in the audit it's so small you can barely read it. But what I'm going to do is just, and I think I've done it in the past, is just kind of go through and run through what our operations were. Obviously, this is your operations, and you can see, you know, on a very detailed basis, the actual different revenues, and then obviously 4 or 5 pages of expenditures by line item. But I'm going to talk like in total, and it's really going to be like our fund balance, you know, our unassigned fund balance. You know, that's ours. That's our 2% of expenditures plus allowable adjustments, which in our case is basically your excess aid, excess extraordinary aid. And that amounts to about 3.3 million. And that's what we started the year with, 3.3 million of what used to be called free balance, but it's unassigned fund balance. And through our operations, you know, we had excess revenues, meaning we had revenues in excess of what we anticipated of over $2 million, $2,151,000. Much of that is extraordinary aid. Matter of fact, 2/3 of that is extraordinary aid, and that, you know, falls back into your unassigned fund balance. But be that as it may, so we started with 3.3 million. We had excess revenues of 2.1. We had unexpended budget, which goes back into your fund balance. And although on C1 you're not going to find this number, but if you know how to manipulate the numbers, you can come up with it. We actually had an unexpended budget of almost $17 million. Now, but from that, we encumbered like $10.5 million. Okay. Now under GAAP, which is our audit basis, an encumbrance does not show as an expenditure. Okay. It's called a reservation of fund balance, but be that as it may, for our purposes, for budgetary basis, we would consider that expenditures. Now, that $10 million, much of that was for, the PPE and other, pandemic-related expenditures. It's quite a bit higher than in prior years because of that. But what that really means is if you had 17 million unexpended, but then you encumber 10 million, you end up with like 6.2 million of true unexpended budget, which represents about 5% of your budget. Okay, so you spent and committed 95% of your budget, which is a little bit less than normal. And I think I think we all know that with that pandemic hitting and going remote and things, our expenditures did decline. So this, we're lapsing, if you will, a lot more appropriations than we normally do. Okay. So anyway, if we start with 3.3, we had excess revenues of 2, we have 6 million of unexpended. That means we'd have $11.7 million of unassigned fund balance. However, we then did something with that. We first designated $1 million to the 2021 budget. Okay, so that comes out of there. Actually, Brooke is showing the 1 million is showing right there. And we also designated 4.8 million to go into capital reserve. We created a maintenance reserve of $2 million, and we created an emergency reserve of 500,000. Well, when you take the 11 less those things, you come back down to a balance of 3,353,000. So we in effect started at 3.3, we ended at 3.3. Okay, which is actually very good. I mean, it's we kind of generated, if you will, more surplus than normal, like I said, because the expenditures were reduced, just as this year, I think, talking with Brooke, our expenditures are down a little bit because with the remote learning, et cetera, the virtual learning, that's cheaper than in-house. So, we're kind of heading towards this same scenario where we're going to have some excess surplus, if you will, that, you're going to have to decide what to do with, as of June 30th. Capital reserve, that's worth, just talking about those transactions. You can see we're ending up with 14,173. And then up above that, you see we had an increase of 5 million. We had a withdrawal of 4 million. Well, that's made up of various things. We started the year at 13.1 million. We canceled some old Fund 30 capital projects, some of which was funded by capital reserve. So that was about 100,000 that came back from Fund 30. We earned interest on our capital reserve of 132,000. We, as I mentioned previously, we transferred from excess surplus 4,855,000 in. That makes up the 5,085,000 increases. Then we had 4,085,000 of expenditures. 3,485,000 of that was actual capital outlay expenditures, and 600,000 was a transfer to debt service, just simply tax relief. That all those transactions, obviously, the difference between 5 million and 4 million, we had a net increase of $1 million. So our capital reserve went from 13.1 to 14.1, which is a wonderful reserve to have, seeing as how you're long-range facility plan is, which includes a lot of long-term things, but what was that, Brooke? Was it 60 million or 90 million?
Yeah, it's like $60 million.
Yeah, so obviously with your size district and unfortunately the age of your buildings, et cetera, there's definitely capital expenditures coming down the line. And this 14 million obviously would handle a lot of small projects. When you start talking about, millions of dollars per roof, 14 million doesn't go very far, but it's a wonderful financial position to be in. And that's about where you stand. And it's a strong, strong position. Any questions, comments that I can help you with?
Wait a minute, I gotta get back here. I started playing around when Mark was talking about it. Now I messed it up. Exit full screen. Okay. Well, I can't see it. Did somebody have their hand up?
Rita,
Me.
Ronnie.
Okay, Rita, go ahead. Go ahead.
I have a question. On page 12 of that schedule, the 2.6 million, the total expenditure, that's the savings we had compared to what we anticipated, correct?
Where was that?
On page 12 of the PowerPoint of that schedule of what you're looking at, the 2.6 million, the total expenditure, that's the savings what we anticipated compared to what we spent, that's 2.6 million. So we saved 2.6 million this year.
Well,
Because of the closures.
okay, we have to, Brooke, can you scroll up to the?
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
00292?
So it's the total expenditures number.
It's
Well,
that, yeah.
the 2.6 is the unexpended number, but that's not really what our unexpended was. So Brooke, can you scroll up to the 00290 series?
Yeah.
Keep going. Up, stop.
Okay.
And can we scroll across because we can't see it?
Yeah, I'm trying. It's hard for me to see what you're seeing. So let me know if this is better.
No.
Full screen mode.
Okay, that'll work. Rita, can you see
Yeah, I'm seeing.
right there? Notice there we have some actual expenditures where there is no budget. Okay, and we're showing, in effect, over expenditures, if you will, of 14,744,000. Okay, be aware that's the TPAF pension and TPAF Social Security on behalf payments that the state makes. Those exact same numbers are also shown on the revenue side. So it's just for presentation purposes, but unfortunately, it screws up our balance. Okay, you see, that's showing that we actually had an over expenditure of 14.7 million, which we didn't have. Okay, on the revenue, we don't have to go back to it, but on the revenue side, it's going to show like the opposite. It's going to show that we had an excess revenue of 14.7 million. So you notice we have these huge excess revenues. Like this is showing we had 17 million of excess revenue, where I said we only had 2 million of excess revenue. And
Okay.
basically it's netting those out of the 17. Okay, so that, back on the expenditure side, our total unexpended was 2 point something million, but we have to add back that 14 million of artificial over expenditures. That's where I come up with the unexpended budget that I had mentioned of like 16.8 million.
Okay. So that's what the state pays.
It's just a presentation thing.
So it's not actually to the district, that's just the state pays and we have to pay them back, basically.
No, we don't pay it back. The state pays, that's the employer's share of TPAF pension contribution and the employer's share of Social Security.
Oh, that's what we have to pay the state.
No, the state pays that for us on our behalf.
Oh, okay. The state-
That's the law. The state pays the employer share of teachers' pension and teachers' social security. Now for PERS, we pay the employer's share. But for the teachers, the state is obligated to pay the employer share. And this is just reflecting it through our records as a revenue and expenditure. It really has no effect on the bottom line. But it does obviously screw up the balance.
Gotcha, that makes sense. Can I ask you one more question? On the page 12, you had the 600,000, then you had 93,882.13. What's that? Why, like, if you subtract the two, you get 506. But the total other finance source, on
Okay.
page 12.
Can you go, keep going, Brooke?
Up or down?
12.
This is,
Down. Up.
I can't, I have mine on
That's
full
it.
screen.
That's it. Stop there.
Right here? Okay.
Yes, that 98 is what I mentioned. That was unexpended capital projects that were financed by capital reserve. So we've transferred that money back into Fund 10, which is where capital reserve is maintained. Okay, that's why it's a transfer from capital projects fund, or transferred in.
And then 93 the same? That's 93,582, the 13 underneath the
Well,
600.
93, that's just the total of those three items, that's all. The 407,000 were new capital leases. We don't have to look, but if we scroll back up to the capital outlay section, we'd be showing that same amount of 407,000 as an expenditure. This is the offsetting revenue. Again, it's just presentation purposes.
Okay.
In and out, so that it doesn't affect really the bottom line. And that 600,000 is what I mentioned, where we transferred capital reserve cash into the Fund 40, which is the debt service,
I see.
to just offset taxes.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Anything else, Rita?
No, that's it.
Okay, Ron?
Yeah, Tim, or Brooke, what did we average year to year in debt service transfers? Does it change year to year? Or like you said, we put 600,000 to the debt service. Do we average more or less? What determines that?
You guys determine that through your budget process. And what is this, what, our maybe second or third year, Brooke, that you've done that?
So consistently, the board has put $600,000 out of capital reserves every year into the debt service, which
Yes.
reduces the impact on taxes when we put our final budget number together. There was a year we went higher on the debt service. So there was one year, it's been consistently $600,000.
Okay. Well, I know it's been that. That's why I was saying.
Yeah.
What makes you determine that, like in your budget, is just so you can fit it into the budget? You don't want to. That's like you said, you take it from the capital reserves. I'm just trying to why we couldn't, like, I know, remember that one year we did that, like why we couldn't do that more, or what's the reason behind it? That's what I was asking.
No, we certainly can. It can definitely be a conversation during budget time if we want to put, I mean, I feel that we're in a good position with capital reserve. Some years, if you only have $2 million in your capital reserves account, you clearly don't want to deplete that. So
Understandable.
we've been in a pretty, so this year and last year, 1920, like Tim said, it was a unique year in that we didn't spend all the money in our budget. And it was definitely due to pandemic, for schools being closed from March through June, where it's just, we're not spending as much. When we're opened, it seems like, we're bleeding, right? We're paying all this money for, PPE and cleaning and additional stuff and substitutes in the classrooms. And when we're closed, it's definitely not as expensive. I mean, our biggest expense is, some of the internet type things. And of course, all the one-to-one devices that we put out. So but in terms of that debt service, it comes out of capital reserves. It's a really great opportunity to use your savings account to pay down that debt.
Well, when we have our budget meeting for the building grounds finance, it's something we're going to discuss.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Mark, you have your hand up, or you're waving your hand electronically?
Yep, thank you very much. First, I want to wish Tim the best of luck on his retirement. We will miss you. And
Thank you,
also,
Mark.
Brooke, I want to congratulate you and your team for putting together a budget that is, I guess, the best that it could be. the audit, actually. I have one question. I guess it's for Tim. I know that we, as Ron was saying, we have millions of dollars that are in reserves for maintenance and capital reserve and maintenance reserves. I wanted to know, what is the normal or acceptable amount percentage-wise that a district usually leaves in those reserves? And have we met that, or are we far above it?
Well, Mark, there is no standard calculation or amount. In most cases, I would say, people are probably underfunded from where they want to be because they just don't have the wherewithal to create or maintain these kind of reserves. So you're very lucky that over the last number of years, we've been able to build it up. And then especially this year, even though we spent $4 million, we're still able to increase our reserve by $1 million. So you're probably in, a much stronger, on a percentage basis, a much stronger basis than really I've probably ever seen. Okay. Most districts that I deal with, which, are most of which are probably maybe not your size, but, they have like very little, like maybe a few $100,000. It's like, just like in a little emergency fund, and that's about it. Even, larger districts that, I am dealing with, or we're dealing with, we're not able to accumulate that kind of money. But there is no standard, there's no, it's like with the unassigned fund balance, that's definitely a 2% plus these adjustments. For the retainage of reserves, there is no guidelines on what you can retain. And
So-
as I said,
so- So the
really,
question,
the most you can get is what you want.
so the question I have is, how much in actuality in millions do we have in reserves?
Capital reserve, you have 14 million. Right here.
Percentage wise for the budget, how much is that? Do you know?
Well, it's probably about 10%, 12%.
Okay. The reason obviously why I'm asking is to see if we can give something back to the taxpayers with 14 million in reserve. Okay. Thank you.
Well, okay.
I see, Will.
You really can't give the 14 million back to the
Oh,
taxpayers.
no, I would not think of that at all.
No,
Some
you can't
of-
use that. You can't use any of that in effect to get tax relief. Okay. You can use that for capital projects, which instead of doing taxation, I guess that's giving it back. But where you can give money back is from the 3.3 million of unassigned fund balance. That's where you can give back. So instead of using $1 million in your budget, you could use 2 million or 2.5 million. As long as you're able to replace it. That's where you get in trouble. Where, if you use 5 million, which is great, you got great tax relief that year, then unfortunately, if you don't regenerate that 5 million, what happens the next year? Well, you can only use 3 million. Well, you got to make that 2 million up with taxes. So then you get a double whammy. But that 14 million is really only for capital purposes, not really for tax relief.
Thank you for explaining
Follow the
that.
distinction.
Thank you.
Looking?
Thank you, Mr. Vanta.
Anybody else?
Thank you to the business office for the job they are doing. And congratulations to the gentleman for your retirement. What decides the amount of money that goes into the capital maintenance and emergency fund after the budget has already been established? Like with all these excess funds, what is the rationale behind, let's put this amount of money on capital, let's put this amount of money in maintenance, let's put this amount on emergency. What is the reason to put whatever money is being put during the school year after the fact?
Well, that's not really a question per se for me. That's really a question to the board. Those transfers to those reserves were in accordance with a resolution that the board adopted designating what to do with excess surplus. Okay, so that was obviously a discussion, on the board, the finance committee. I'm sure Brooke and Pat were involved. And that's what was decided.
I would like to have a copy of that resolution designated what to do with the excess funds. You mentioned money that we have extra as a result of construction. I don't know if this is referring to did we not do the middle school main office upgrade? Is that money? Is that 100,000 and so from that account?
No,
Okay. I think we are. I think it's I think 11.7 million. You mentioned 11.7 million unassigned. $4 million spent, $14 million capital reserve, which is 12% of the budget. And if I'm not mistaken, you stated that we could give back 3.3 million to the taxpayers. I think it's nice to have extra money, but I think right now we need to, I agree with Mr. Spindell. I think we have to find a way to give back to the taxpayers of Fairlawn who are sacrificing a lot. So although remote learning is cheaper, money-wise, the social and emotional impact.
Well, can we just talk about the audit, please? That's the subject we're on. You want to talk about that stuff later in your open time? That's fine. Let's stick to the audit, though. If you have a question or comment about the audit, go ahead.
So based on what I heard from the audit, I think we are in a good position to lower the school tax and return the money to the taxpayers that we have left over. We shouldn't have 12% capital reserve while people are struggling to eat and pay their taxes when many have lost their job. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other board members have questions for Tim or a comment about the audit? All right, seeing none.
so Jean, we do have some members of the public that raise their hands. So
Okay.
if you, at whatever point you'd like to,
Yeah, all right, go ahead, put them in.
I'm not sure if it may, I just want, there's a little bit of a clarification there based on what Mr. Santana said. That's not actually correct, or what
I
the
know,
auditor
I
did
know.
state. So I just want to put that for the record, that's not.
I know,
accurate.
I understand.
Can you clarify what is not correct?
So we have to attend, your statement was not correct
What was
regarding
not correct?
ability to give back the money to the taxpayers, or that was a 12% of our budget in the capital reserves. And this is the audit for the 1920 school year. So we're now in the 2021 school year. So we're talking about fund balances. We're ready now in the next school year.
Well, I was only repeating what the gentleman stated, which 3.3 million of unassigned money, and he stated from the 3.3 million, the money that could be returned to the taxpayer could be from the 3.3 million unassigned budget. Isn't that what you stated, Mr. Burrell?
Yes,
Thank you.
it's available.
Thank you. I stand corrected.
As
It's
long
not-
as you,
It's
as long as
not
you can
advisable,
turn
but
it
it's
back.
available.
Okay.
It's available. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to bring in the first public.
You gotta
Or-
wait now, Mike.
I'm-
No, bring in the public. Mike got his hand up late, but we'll get it.
Okay. So we're gonna just
Hello.
ask, okay, if you could just state your name, please.
This is Danielle Harari. I just wanted to state I find what Mr. Santana is saying to be very informative, and I don't want to see him get shut down more than he already has been. Second of all, these meetings are not public enough. I know this is something for public comments, but I just wanted to state that because I think it's very important for people to be here and listen in. And lastly, I just wanted to know if that page would have shown how much money is allocated to mental health. Does anyone know?
Yeah,
Wait.
there's a section on that schedule that refers to health services. Within that health service line, you can see that's all the health, and the mental health is covered under that portion.
How much money is that?
About $2.3 million. And then in addition to that, there's also additional mental health resources it's a different code that's called related services as well, which is $2.3 million. So it's about $5 million between those two different health services.
And in what forms are these services like provided to the kids in the schools?
It's provided in all different forms, from individual to group to family counseling, elementary school, middle school, high school. We have different levels of support. Our mental health, from a child study team and guidance counselors providing counseling, to another level of Care Plus providing the next level of services if a student warranted it, to Effective School Solutions, the most intense of the mental health services that we do offer, that do intense one-to-one group and family therapy. In addition to that, we have a social emotional learning curriculum that's also encompasses mindfulness as well. So, I mean, there's all different types of mental health services from elementary school all the way through high school for all of our students that is available. And also,
That's great.
breaking
I
down-
just think that, sorry, what was that?
no, I was just saying, when we get to our budget presentations in the spring or March or so, we'll be breaking down the recommendations for mental health for next year as well for the budget.
Yeah, I think that it's also super important to inform the kids in the schools and maybe have an assembly like on all the things that are available, because as someone that went to Fairlawn High School, I was not aware of any of these things really. They weren't really provided like to your face. Like you had to really look for it, like go out and look for it, just like you have to go out and look for these meetings. They're not easy to come by. So I think it's all about accessibility.
Danielle, thank you very much. Can I just ask you one question?
Of course.
Because a lot of these mental health initiatives are fairly new to Fairlawn, and we just rolled them out. What year did you graduate?
Last year.
Last year? Okay. All right. Well, that's helpful to know. Thank you very much. Appreciate your feedback. And also, Danielle, we did put on our website, I'm looking at it right now,
No, yeah, the link.
the link for more public meeting information. And we've also put our agenda out earlier, and we opened up the Google Doc earlier as well. So we are casting a wide net out there for public participation. We're trying.
I actually made a post, an Instagram post, so like kids my age could actually like come to these meetings, because we're the people that are being affected by all this stuff you're doing. So I think that it's important to have our input. So I think that maybe if you guys like would like me to send you the post and you could put it on Facebook so people actually know what's going on, that's really important.
Thank you, Danielle. Have a good night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Jane, can I just add something to that? Because I am the liaison for the Substance Abuse Alliance.
Sure, go ahead, Mark.
I just wanted to tell the young individual there who was just speaking that if she wants, there's a whole host of programs that are available to parents and to students within the district. And if she wants, she can call, because I don't know exactly which, But if she called up the health department and spoke to Carol in the health department, she could steer her in the right direction as to what is being offered and to whom she should be speaking to get the advice. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Brooke, is there anybody else from the public?
Yeah, we have one more.
All right, and then Mike. I didn't forget you, Mike.
Okay.
Good night, and this is Alba Morales speaking. Thank you so much for the presentation on the audit. It's a great presentation. Thank you, Mr. Barbarell. And I have to agree with you that it's not advisable just to return money for the sake of returning money. This should be a planned effort. I am familiar with other budgets for smaller organizations, but we have something called a reserve study. And in that reserve study is a guide of all the buildings and physical structures of a company or a nonprofit organization, or in this case, the Board of Education, where engineers go and check all these physical structures, and they give you timeline of where they're gonna need to be replaced and how much they cost. So you can use that reserve fund and plan ahead for the next 30 years of when the roofs can have to be changed, when the windows have to be changed. So it's actually a financial plan. So you're not looking at this money as free money you can return, but you can look at this money as how are you gonna fund the next set of replacements, heating, toilets.
Yeah. So Alba, that's a wonderful statement. And as Mr. Vrabel had mentioned, it's called the Long Range Facility Plan, and it's a required document. And we talked about that we have $60 million of capital projects that we are required to do in order to maintain our facilities. Because remember, we have 12 buildings.
Right.
It's a very large district. It's a $100 million operation. As Mr. Vrabel stated, it's $2 million at least for a roof. If we did want to talk about having energy savings, when we replace a roof, we add solar or something. These are things to consider why we have that. And that long range facility plan is our Bible in terms of prioritizing what those projects are. So our capital reserves fund is completely in line with exactly what you're saying, that there's a plan in place for a 1-year plan, 2-year, 5, 10-year, 30-year plan as well. And part of that is a conversation that we talked about earlier this year in our finance committee, where we shared the long range facility plan.
Right. So I think
that's a really great point. And just talking about the maintenance reserves as well, it was that maintenance reserve money that we were able to use this year to plug that $1.3 million state aid deficit. So
right.
it's definitely part of a conversation. If you want to have these reserves in place to protect our district from being in a position, like Tim said, where, I mean, I have colleagues that have very little reserves, that you can have 5 special education students move in and require services that completely blow your budget out. So there's a lot of thought process with what you're saying of having a plan, and that we're in line with the district goals or long range facility plan where we want to go in the future. So I
Right.
appreciate
Maybe before board members jump the gun into thinking that that's money that can be just sent back to the taxpayer, maybe a review of that long-term plan will be ideal, because everybody should be on the same page of the financial safety of the district. I think what you point out is absolutely correct. Like, you have special education. A lot of people move in here because of the special education. So I commend you for having those reserves. And I think it's very important to think of a long-term plan and not just short-term appeasing of the crowds when you have a huge district that needs those reserves. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Alba.
Thank you, Alba. Brooke, anybody else from public for now?
No,
All right.
but
Mike,
I'm having
you
a
will-
hard time figuring out how to get the people back to becoming not a panelist anymore.
All right, well, you got a minute to figure out while Mike talks.
Okay.
No, just real.
So Alba, if I accidentally remove you, just join back in again.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, Mike, go ahead.
First of all, thank you to the 2 members of the public that called in. It's always appreciated. Tim, you said something right at the end, and I think you might have gotten cut off a little bit. What did you say about it not being recommended to use all of that money for that, for tax relief?
Well, I just had a brief comment, which I first came up with it in labor negotiations, where I said it might be allowable to do such a thing, but it is not advisable. Okay, and just as that Alba Morales just mentioned, reserves are for protecting you from unforeseen emergencies and for future expenditures. They are not available or should not be used for just simply tax relief.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
I appreciate that. Yeah. So, I mean, this conversation certainly, we want some tax relief, but one thing that this district we've always been proud of is the fact that of planning ahead and making sure that we don't cut ourselves short too. So, so I appreciate it, and congratulations again on your retirement.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, Tim, thank you. All right, let's move on then. Nick, you don't have more comments, right? Tim, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank
Can I
you,
just
Tim.
say
Best of luck.
thank you to all of you for your, loyal support. And I really enjoyed working with you and wish the best of luck in your future.
Thank you.
Same to you, Tim. Enjoy
Thank you very
Florida.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Hey, Paul, I didn't see you.
You well.
All right, Brooke, do
Bye-bye.
we have anybody else? Now we're going to talk about just the agenda items. Are any members of the public have any comments, questions on the agenda items?
We'll just give them a minute. So if there's any public who want to make a comment on any agenda items, just raise your hand. Okay, so we have one person. I'm going to do this differently this time. Then I'm going to do a different method and bring them in if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right. Okay, there you are. Okay, Dawn, are you in here? You're still muted.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
hi,
right.
Dawn.
Hi. Dawn Ebner, President Fair Loan Education Association and a teacher at the high school. I have a couple of things. First, I wanted to congratulate all of the Fair Loan Education Association members who are retiring. Well, I don't know all of them individually, know them personally. I do know a little bit better Sharon, Theo, and Colleen. But that being said, I do know that they all work really, really hard, and I can attest to the hard work that they do and the dedication that they have and continue to have for the students of Fair Lawn. And I would like to wish all of them the best in their retirement. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing is I had a couple of questions. Well, I won't say a couple, I will say several questions regarding the second reading of the policies that are coming up, or either questions and or comments, I guess. First, policy 2422, and this deals with the physical education curriculum, the health and physical education curriculum. And from what I know, since I am a health and phys ed teacher, and what I know of the curriculum, when does that curriculum need to be implemented? I guess that's part one of the question. And then part two of the question is, or a comment in addition to that is, whenever this needs to be implemented, based on what I know about the curriculum, it will need to be updated and potentially some rewriting of curriculum. So that's the first one regarding 2422.
Nick, you got an answer for that? You're
I
muted.
think-
Nick's muted. You're muted, Nick.
Okay, I hear you. It doesn't have a date in the policy of when it actually has to be implemented. Natalie, do you know of a date?
So I will check, I will look that up for us. They just updated much of the NJSLS across a variety of curricular areas. Some of them are due to be implemented in 2021, September of 2021, and some are not until September of 2022. So I'll take a quick look at that, Dawn, and get right back to you. So while you're asking your other questions, I will check that out. And then as in regards to curriculum writing, we will be doing some summer work with curriculum writing this year and next, and probably working on some stuff during the school years as well. So
Okay,
that we are in compliance with that.
okay,
I'll get that answer for you. Just give me a moment.
okay. The next one, is, let's see, the 5610 and the 5620 regarding the, suspension and expulsion, policies. I couldn't, like, when I was looking, and maybe I was just looking, missed it, but what is the difference between that and our current policy that's in place?
The policy for 5610 requires a principal to convene a meeting between a student and appropriate personnel after a student has experienced multiple suspensions or may be subject to proposed expulsion from public school. So you could try to intervene before it gets to a point where they do something and just go right to an expulsion. So it's more like an intervention process before we get to expulsion. A lot of our practices that our administrators do anyway, but this is just more of, the state formalizing. So we just don't go, one kid does one thing, it's like, where did that come from? And then we're having an expulsion conversation at the board level.
Right, okay. Let's see here. 8320 is the only change in that, from what I saw, is just going from chief school administrator to changing the terminology to superintendent. The 8320 was regarding the personnel records, and I think that's the only change, but I wasn't certain if that was the only change there.
I'm going through, I have the whole stack of policies in front of me. I'm just.
Okay.
Oh, I think on
Was
our
this the-
on our website, Nick, on
Yeah, I'm looking at it.
under the agendas where it says BOE December 17th.
Yeah.
For 8320, it says that this policy requires Board of Education to make certain employee records and information available for public access pursuant to Open Public Records Act. I think that was what the change was.
So in addition to the fact that the change of the chief school administrator and to superintendent, it also says that the public can access personnel records.
Certain aspects of it. Paul, do you remember something about that? I mean, clearly most of the stuff is confidential and can't be released to the public.
Yeah, that's really the standard provision in the Open Public Records Act, provides certain limited exceptions for release of personnel documents. Most of them are maintained as confidential.
Dawn, I'll get the exact difference from the old 8320 to the new one, and I'll email it to you for sure.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And then the last, or actually two more, the 5330.04, the opioid overdose policy. And it talked about personnel, that nurse being trained and others being trained. Do you know if it talked about like after school activities, are coaches going to get a training with that regarding that policy? Like get CPR and AED, or coaches also, and potentially, and I know this is probably something that is a little bit further down the road, like where that would be accessible for the people who are trained to access it. I know it says it has to be secure and unlocked, but I'm just wondering if coaches or other after school programs, whether it be musical or anything like that, are going to have the ability to get trained on that.
Yes, we will. And I'll work with Mr. Robinson on that and Mr. Gorski about the coaches. If that's something that we see fit is training the coaches, I think it's a great thing. And we also, yes, I'll leave.
Okay.
Yes, we will. Back to 8320, I did have it in front of me. It is about the opering of personnel records and certain pieces of it tied to the regulation that can be, but we'll look into it a little bit more to find out exactly what it is that would be available to the public.
Okay, all right, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah,
All right, and,
absolutely.
And Dawn, I
yeah.
have your answer. So September of 2022 is when the new comprehensive health and phys ed standards go into place.
Okay, so we have a little time on that one.
We do.
Okay.
And Dawn, I
yeah.
know we're all over the place, but we're answering your question. I do have a note that we do have online training for Narcan for the coaches that we could forward their way as well.
Oh, okay, good. That's good to hear. Fantastic. All right, and then the last thing I hopefully at this point is the 8220 regarding the school day. It looked like there was a change in potentially like the start time. I'm not sure if that is if that's just a standard policy.
No,
You know,
it was not a change in the start time. It was how we present our calendars to the public, and the time have to be like available. So it says the start time and end time of every school and the length of the day should be out there for everybody to find easily.
Okay, okay. So it's just a posting of that
Yes.
information for the public. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, Dawn.
Thanks, Dawn.
Yep.
Let me try to move you back now.
Okay. I'll come back if you kick me out.
Anybody
Okay.
else, Brooke?
We have two hands up. So I'm gonna, that way it worked better. So. Okay, hold on 1 second. Okay,
Hi guys, Mel Gershower, at Berlin Drive, Fair Lawn. I just wanted, I apologize, I don't have the agenda in front of me right now, but I do recall from reading it, something that, you know, is very near and dear to my heart is the retirement of Ms. Sharon Bragan. Sharon has served on the FLACE board for as long as I've been an officer of FLACE, and the extent of her giving of herself to the special education community in particular, but students in general, it's just amazing how one person can just be such a rock star for the special education population. She's going to be very deeply missed. I know there was I think there was 5 or 6 names on that retiree list. I can't even remember all the names on the list, but I remember when I read her name, my jaw dropped, and I just want to, send her off and tell her FLACE, sends all good thoughts and warm wishes and happy retirement to her, but also just to let her know that she will be deeply, deeply missed.
Thank you, Mel. No,
Mel.
said, Sharon, it will definitely be missed. All of our retirees will definitely be missed. I mean, we are very, very blessed and lucky with the staff that we have, but Sharon and, coming from the special ed department, but just overall, just out of all our teachers, I mean, Sharon is just unbelievable. I mean, what she does, and it's just her energy and her heart. It's just when she text and reached out to me and said, I want you to be the first to know. I mean, I think it was 7 a.m. I called her, and it was just when she sent it to me and just, wished her well, and just, like I said, bittersweet. So happy for her to enjoy her retirement and enjoy her time. It's much deserved, but a huge loss to our district because there is only one Sharon Bragan, and we all know that.
True story. But I mean, I've already told her she will be at every dinner dance moving forward. So we'll still get to see her. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mel.
Thank you, Mel.
okay, we have one more.
Hi, Alba Morales again. So I wanted to talk about the gifted and talented policy. So I read the 2016 policy and I read the new policy, and in my opinion, I might be missing something, but you're stripping out specific on the policy. So the 2016 policy was specific as to how the students will be offer services. So you had pull-out programs, classroom differentiation in structure, acceleration, flexible pacing, compacted curricula, distance learning, advanced classes. You had a set of options for those gifted and talented students. And when I read the 2020 or 2021, however you guys consider it, all that strip out of the policy. So I was very surprised by that. It seems like a very vague policy. I'm not sure what the intent of the policy was, but in my opinion, it's actually taken away resources for the students, making it very vague as to they
I
will
don't-
have in structural adaptation.
Alba, thank you for the comment, but I don't think that was the intent of the policy. It was more, well, this was mandated by the state. It was more formalizing the gifted and talented for state reporting, a process if somebody wanted to, dispute or find out why or their son or daughter may not have gotten into the policy. But I'll have Natalie Lakatina speak about it a little bit more. But it was not, we're not stripping anything down in the program. I mean, we're always building up our REACH program, we feel like every year. So it's not stripping down. It's more state mandates of formalizing our gifted and talented program where we never had to do that before by law. Natalie?
Yeah, I mean, you said it exactly, Nick. I don't have the two policies sitting in front of me to compare word for word, but we, over the past 2 years, have been improving our REACH program. We have expanded our REACH program. We have added services. And so in no way, shape, or form is this policy intended to take anything out. Everything that you just mentioned, Alba, is still available to students that need it. We have incorporated these personalized plans for students if they need additional enrichment, and we spell out what it is that we will be doing for them in the classroom. So there is no intention for that. The state passed some new gifted and talented laws this year, and so the board is required to adopt a policy that has certain things in it. And as Mr. Norcia said, one of those is a report that needs to be done that corresponds with our CUSAC year. It requires certain data to be collected. It requires certain pieces to be included on the website, and it includes a complaint process. So that's really what the intent of that mandated policy is.
So why was that language of the policy removed? The one that I just read, why was it removed from the original policy instead of just adding those other things that are now mandated by the state? Because I did compare the two documents side by side. I did a comparison of each word by word. So I can assure you this was removed from the new policy. And I just wonder if the changes only needed to be to accommodate the state new regulations, why not those were added? And instead, those examples of how the program work or could work for a child were removed from the policy.
At this point, we had a policy meeting 2 meetings ago, I believe it was. We had our first reading at the last board meeting. This is our second reading and our final reading up for a vote tonight. I appreciate your feedback, but this is the policy that the board felt comfortable with, aligned with what the state was asking us to include in the policy. And like I said, whether that was in the policy or not in the policy, we're probably offering more than what the policy even had in it, the old policy. So I do appreciate the comment, but at this point, this is the policy that's before the board after 2 readings. Brooke, anybody else?
No.
All right, I'm going to open up to board comments on agenda items. Paul, can you do me a favor, keep time, please?
Absolutely.
All right, board members, questions, comments. Cindy?
Thanks, Jean. I just wanted to acknowledge the retirees on our agenda tonight. I don't know all of them personally, but 2 of them are very near and dear to my heart. Theodora Gramkow and Sharon Bragan. I met Theodora when my son went into Westmoreland. She had children in Westmoreland, and I joined the PTO with her. And she is an amazing person. She dedicated herself to the district. She was one of the first people when we went for full day to kindergarten, got in on the, making sure that the students were getting what they needed to get. And it was, she really spearheaded it when we first started. And I just wanted to thank her for her dedication. And Mel said it perfectly about Sharon, and so did Nick. This woman is just selfless, and it's all about her kids. She goes out of her way to make sure that they're taken care of, loved, and made to feel special. And it really will be a deep hole in the district. And I wish her nothing but the best. She's a wonderful lady. She makes you laugh, cry, and sing all at the same time.
Ron, I got you. That is Cindy?
Yes, thank you, Jean.
Ron and Julie.
Yeah, just real quick, two things. To the retirees, thank you for all your service. I know most of them, but three, Karen Herman and Eileen Servich at Forest School, both were involved with my kids' academic careers. Karen's gone above and beyond as a paraprofessional for all these years and has taken care of so many children. Eileen has been phenomenal, especially as a first grade teacher. I know a lot of times Forest gets a bad rap. It's an excellent school, and they've contributed to being such a good school. And also Sharon, I know it sounds repetitive, but I got to know Sharon extremely well over the last 10 years. And very close to her, and she goes beyond outside the school walls what she does for her children. She makes sure that they're taken care of pretty much every minute of the day. They're almost like her adopted children. And I know when we got the phone call, Nick and I was pretty much shocked, understood, and she deserves it. And I wish her nothing but the best, because her sister retired a couple of years ago from our district, and I know they love to travel together, and that's great because now they have more time to do things as soon as COVID ends, hopefully. But I wanted to thank all of them, for their contributions. And also I wanted to thank the Anna Perlman Lehman Scholarship for Business Students, as usual, another person putting up money to help our students in their futures. And I think it's just a great, great honor. And I want to thank them personally for that scholarship. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Julie, you're up.
Thank you. So I wanted to congratulate all the retirees. I actually don't know any of them personally, but I just wanted to highlight the student assistance coordinator who was at the middle schools for the last 22 years. That is a tough job, a tough age, and can often be very thankless. And to know that someone has been doing that and servicing our students and their mental health and their supports for the last 22 years, I am extraordinarily grateful. I just wanted to go back to something that Ms. Ebner said. She mentioned the health and physical education policy. So at our December 10th policy meeting, both myself and Vlad brought up the concern, and I don't know if this is what Mrs. Ebner mentioned, but brought up the concern about the LGBTQIA history and the special education history, as well as the financial literacy piece. And Natalie actually stated that financial literacy wasn't in the NJSLS curriculum. And then Mike, you referenced that it actually doesn't directly correlate to curriculum. So I actually am confused because I thought this policy does not directly correlate to our curriculum, when now I'm hearing that it does. So I just want a little bit of clarification, because I stated then that I did not think financial.
No, we did not say that. Just to clarify, we didn't say that it was directly related to the curriculum. We said that we were going to look into it and get back to everybody. But as always, we do curriculum writing in the spring and the summer, whether it's for phys ed or whatever classes that do need it. So we're saying if there is curriculum revisions that needed, we'll have them, because we always have them, but we'll look into the policy and get clarification for everybody.
Okay, so maybe I misspoke.
No, I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
Wait a minute, I'm confused. Julie, what did you say right before Nick said, I don't think so?
That maybe I misspoke, and I was going to restate my question.
Okay, well, all right. You want to restate it? Go ahead.
Yeah. I was under the impression
I
that the
got you,
addition of those two, so 17 and 18, the financial and economic literacy, which is 18, and history of disabilities and GLBTQIA, were being placed in there because they are directly related to some of the health topics, but that it wouldn't directly affect the health and phys ed curriculum, because I know I voiced my concern for financial literacy being taught during health and phys ed. I believe Vlad did as well. I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf. But at this point in time, I don't, if that is going to directly correlate to curriculum, I do have a concern about that.
All right, Nick, looking at something. Okay, we're gonna respond, or just, we're gonna look at the curriculum and get back?
I
to
don't
everybody?
understand the question, to be quite honest.
All right, well, why don't
It's
we?
whether or not we need to revise the curriculum as part of this, or we don't have to revise the curriculum. And it's
No, my question is, if this is direct, if health and physical education policy is directly correlated to the health and phys ed curriculum, then I'm now restating that I do not think financial and economic literacy should be in that policy, and we need to find another place for it.
Got you.
Okay, I got what you're saying now. Okay.
I also personally, I think that the history of disabilities and LGBTQIA also should be somewhere else. It should be in health and phys ed, but the history of disabilities and LGBTQIA should be everywhere. So if these are directly curriculum based, then I think we need to table this.
I know there's a lot of questions about this. I get it. I know there's a lot of people shaking their heads, nodding, whatever. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull this from the second reading for tonight.
Thank you.
Provide you with more information on it. Nothing's going to happen from now to the next meeting in Fair Lawn that's going to shatter the world over this policy. I will pull it. We will get you more information so that you're informed, the whole board, before we bring it back to the board. How about that?
Fantastic. Thank you, Nick.
Was that 24-22, Nick?
So that is 24-22, health and physical education, because this
Okay.
is mandated. So let's go back. We'll speak with the county. We'll speak with Strauss Esme. We'll see where
Okay.
we're coming for this, and we'll
All right, we'll clear up any confusion we might have.
I appreciate
Like
it.
a
Thank you,
plan.
guys.
Yeah,
Point
don't
of
worry.
order.
What's your point of order?
Don't we need a motion to table this?
We haven't made the motion for this yet. We're just having a discussion. So now Nick is saying that
Take
he's-
something out of the agenda. Don't we need a motion to remove it?
If the
Not if it has.
superintendent wants to, go ahead, Paul.
If the superintendent can pull it with the consent of the board president, as long as it hasn't been moved yet. It has not been moved.
Thank you.
Okay. Mike,
All right, just for the record, that was the same conversation that I remember it exactly the way Julie remembered it. I just wanted to also, this is repetitive, and I apologize for it to be repetitive, but first of all, congratulations to all the retirees. One of my granddaughters has Mrs. Surovich this year, wonderful teacher, and all these people are wonderful teachers. Colleen Campbell is a school nurse, a wonderful lady at Memorial. But Sharon Bragan, I've never come across in my career or in my life a teacher like Sharon Bragan. I have no idea how she is as a special ed teacher in the school. I could just imagine. But what she does for the school culture and what she does for the community is second to anybody I've ever come across in my life. She has organized programs that the students have gotten involved in every aspect of our community. Any charitable program that we have in our community, Sharon Bragan has gotten students involved and is just an incredible person with an incredible amount of energy. I have to say, when I received the letter that she was retiring, I cried for a minute. I cried for a minute because I said, oh my God, I don't believe that she's there. The only thing I could guess, if I know Sharon Bragan, like I think I know Sharon Bragan, we'll still see her, and we'll still see her in this district a little bit, and we'll still see her doing the things she did. I just have I wish I could be half the teacher and half the teacher she is. So I felt I needed to say that. The other thing I wanted to say, and this is a little bit to the policy, and which is how I'm getting it in here, but I wanted to assure Mrs. Morales, we just actually had an education committee meeting on the REACH program, and the REACH program is just improving, and I think that like was said, it was more of the wording that the state wanted us to have in the policy for REACH. And that happens in a lot of policies, that we get wording that the state wants through regulations and through policy. So that's how that sometimes happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Any other board members on the Vlad?
Maybe it's a question to Paul. When the state wants us to have certain language, when the state mandates us to have certain language in a policy, we of course absolutely have to have this language in the policy. But in addition to that language, if we want, we can have other language. Isn't that true?
That's correct. And the state doesn't mandate, by the way, what the language has to say. It just has to say you have to policy on it. So, I mean, that usually is discretionary too in terms of how you word that. So they'll say you must have a policy in X, Y, or Z. They don't necessarily tell you what that has to say.
Well, sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they do, but oftentimes they just say, you, for example, you must have a policy on gifted and talented. They may then spell out what that must contain, but they don't necessarily always dictate what the language should be. But yes, that's correct. You can also go beyond what the state requires.
Thank you.
Vlad, anything else? No, you done? Any other board members, questions, comments on the agenda? Wilkin?
Yes. On FIA, the snow truck, I know it's a $30,000 purchase. That's a lot of money. Can we get by this year without it, or is this an absolute must? Mr. Norcia, the question is for you.
Yeah, no, we need it. That's why it's recommended. That's why we brought it to the finance committee. And it's something that, you know, with the size of our district and what we need, especially with the upcoming storm, you know, we need it. We wouldn't be bringing it to the board if we didn't feel like we needed it.
This was a budgeted item, and we actually waited until now to purchase it because I was making sure that we had enough funds, and we definitely need it with the last snowstorm and this snowstorm coming up.
The reason I'm asking is because, you know, no one was planning on a pandemic to happen, and this is our very special circumstances. And if it's absolutely necessary for us to keep our buildings and our children safe and our staff, I will be supporting it. But if we can get enough, if we have enough equipment to get by, then we should hold it, put this for next year, because it is $30,000. That's a lot of money.
It is my recommendation that we need it.
Gotcha.
Thank
I think based on what I heard, and based on the policies and on the language from the state, and based on what I heard from our current board members, I think we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful when following what the state is telling us to do, because it's very confusing. Sometimes the state recommended language is not the most appropriate language, and we should do what's best for furlough. As always, we have to follow the law, okay? But there's a lot of mandates coming from the state, which we should scrutinize and look at it very closely, because there's some things coming from the state that many parents do not agree with in this community. But I will not go in detail to what it is, because there will be a time for that. But thank you. Just to conclude, F3B. I just wanna get this crystal clear. I just wanna get it crystal clear. The bills. All board members are allowed to get copies of the bills, regardless if they are on, if they are assigned during a given month to review the bills or not. Am I correct?
Yes, you're correct.
Because anything that is Oprah, a board member should not be denied. Am I correct?
Once again, yes, you are correct.
No further questions.
Should we clarify for the full board, Gene, what we're talking about here so everybody knows what we're speaking about?
A board member asked for a copy of the bill list who's not on the bill list for this month. At first, they weren't going to get it, and now they did. There, that's clarified. That's it. Okay, end of comments for the board. Julie?
I just want to say one more thing. I want to clarify that number 17, which is the history of disabled and LGBTQ persons, so NJSA 18A semicolon 35-4.35 and 4.36. I believe that it needs to be thoroughly integrated into our curriculum. I just don't necessarily know it needs to be phys ed and health. So I'm not saying that it shouldn't be there. I'm just saying that I think it might be there might be a better place for it. It is a state regulation, and I think that there is a significant importance to learning this curriculum. I just want to make sure that it's in the right place.
Okay, thank you, Julie. Okay, let's have a motion for G1 and G2.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
I just want to remind everyone, if you were not at these minutes, please abstain on the minutes approval, which is G1. Mr. Barbarulo.
Yes, we pulled that one policy, correct?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry, right. Pull
Yes.
2422. You're right, Ron,
Okay.
thanks.
You're welcome. So, yes.
Mrs. Favelovich.
Abstain on G1 and yes on G2.
Mr. Itkin.
Yes on G1, no on policy 2462, yes on everything else.
Mahan.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Santana.
Abstain on G1. Yes on G2.
Mr. Spindell.
Yes.
And Mr. Banta.
Yes. A motion on S1 through S3, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbarulo.
Yes.
Mrs. Favelovich.
Can you come back to me for a second, please? So I can get
Sure. Mr. Itkin.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Santana.
Yes.
Mr. Spindell.
Yes.
Mrs. Favelovich.
Abstain on S3C and yes on everything else.
Mr. Banta.
Yes. A motion for E1 through E3, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbarulo.
Yes.
Mrs. Favelovich.
Yes.
Mr. Itkin.
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan.
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush.
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg.
Yes.
Mr. Santana.
Yes.
Mr. Spindell.
Yes.
And Mr. Banta.
Yes. All right, a motion on P1 through P6, please.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Barbarulo,
Yes.
Mrs. Favelovich,
Yes.
Mr. Itkin,
Yes.
Mahan,
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Santana,
Can you come back to me, please?
Mr. Spindell,
Yes.
Mr. Santana,
Yes.
Mr. Banta.
Yes. All right, may I have a motion for SE1 through SE3?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbarulo,
Yes.
Mrs. Favelovich,
Yes.
Mr. Itkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Santana,
Yes.
Mr. Spindell,
Yes.
Mr. Banta.
Yes. And may I have a motion for F1 through F6?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Barbarulo,
Yes.
Mrs. Favelovich,
No on F3B, F5A, and everything else, yes.
Mr. Itkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
Yes.
Ms. Quackenbush,
Yes.
Mr. Rosenberg,
Yes.
Mr. Santana,
No on F3B. No on F5, A.
Mr. Spindell,
Yes.
Mr. Banta.
Yes. There's no addendum that I know of, right, Brooke?
No.
Okay. I'm going to go to public comments on other business. All right, Brooke, open it up and see if there's anybody there.
You have one person raising their hand.
Okay, let them in.
Okay.
Hello, this is Danielle Harari again. I just wanted to state the importance, again, a few of the members said this, in the LGBTQ education, as well as disabled people. But the thing is, what I wanted to question is, while you're talking about those oppressed groups, you're completely there's lack of care in the Black people that are oppressed in the United States. So what I've heard is that there's a Blue Lives Matter flag in the Fair Lawn schools, which I find to be absolutely sickening, especially after the fact that the insurrection at the Capitol. You clearly see that the Blue Lives Matter flag isn't a statement of the fact that police lives matter. It's rather a counter to the fact that Black Lives Matter, which has clearly been shown throughout history due to the fact that the police system was set up to oppress people of color and incarcerate them. So I just want to ask you how you think that people of color, especially Black children in Fair Lawns High School, feel when they're walking past a police officer who's supposed to be there to protect them, but then they have a flag countering the statement that Black Lives Matter. I also think that it's absurd that teachers could wear this. They're supposed to be educating kids, not showing a political belief. And I think that it disturbs the child's education as well as their mental health and their well-being. The mayor of Fair Lawn doesn't even allow the police officers to wear the mask because he even asked Patterson's police officers, oh, do your do your police officers wear this mask? And they were like, no, they would never. That would be so disrespectful. So I don't get why we're allowing this to happen in the Fair Lawn schools. If anyone could answer that for me and see what we could do to stop this.
Danielle, I appreciate your comments. I really do. I am very proud of our district goal. I think, which is about equity. And at our next meeting, we're going to be having our equity team that was newly developed this year, who just went to a 5-day training, which is made up of it's made up of 10 different staff members throughout the whole district. So we will be writing an action plan on how we can address anything that comes up district-wide. What I will not do is politicize this conversation in a country that right now is pretty divided. But I do hear what you're saying.
I don't think it's politicizing it.
No, Danielle, please. You had your time. It's my turn. I do appreciate your comments. I appreciate you being involved tonight. But what I will not do is offer a political opinion. I always say, as the superintendent, we do not, I am not going there. We are not, this country right now, there are parts of it that are divided right now, but I will bring it back to our equity team and we will have a conversation about it. But I thank you for your comments.
It's a privilege for it to be
Danielle, I thank you for your comments, Danielle. Moving on.
It's human rights.
Okay, thank you, Danielle.
You guys have public comments to hear. I wanted to say what I wanted to say.
I know you did, and we allowed it.
Nick,
And I do thank you for it.
Hold on. Danielle, I think you got 3 minutes. You didn't use it. I'll give you another minute.
Okay, thank you. Have a good one. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Brooke, anybody else?
I have one more. Hold on one second. Okay.
Alda Morales again. I just wanted to ask the policy committee, I guess, Michael Rosenberg, you're the head of the committee, I'm guessing. So how does it work? Because I've never seen these policies before today. So is it procedure that comments from the public are not part of the conversation? Or how do we get access to the policies so we can get our opinion before you actually vote on the policies?
Well, what we do is we have a first reading, a policy meeting. We agree to put it on for the second policy meeting. For the second reading. And at that time, it's published to the public. And the public can make comments on it anytime up to the meeting that they want to make. And then we vote on it. Ron, you want to say something, add something?
Yes, Gene, I do want to add some. The policy meetings are public and nobody comes to them. They're public.
I went to the policy meeting, but there was not an actual reading of the policy, Ronnie. I know you guys.
That policy was read. I was the policy chair at the time, being the president. But I just wanted to state that the policy meetings are public. They are allowed to come and, add whatever they want to add to. And we as a board can take it and put it together. As Paul stated, the policies are mandated by the state to have the policy, not what you put in the policy. All those things, they give us changes in italics and stuff. They're suggestions. We can either accept them or not as a board. But I just wanted to clarify that. That's all. Thank you.
Alba, you have another question, another comment?
No, I like moving forward. I would like to see the actual language of the policies before the first reading so people can actually comment on them. That's all.
Well, that's not the way we do things, but thank you. Okay. Brooke, anybody else out there?
Gene Vlad had something he wanted to say about it.
About the policy?
Yeah. Or his hand was up, I think.
I didn't see it. Vlad. Brooke, any other public members?
No. Seeing none.
Seeing none. Okay. Board members, questions, comments on other.
Wait a second. I'm sorry. Mark is raising his hand. It's And now,
This is for the board, though. I'm not in the public, obviously.
Wait, is there any
Open it
other
up.
public, Brooke?
There's no more public
No.
comments. We're getting to board comments on new business. We're up to board comments and new business. Raise your hand like this if you want to say something. Thank you.
Exactly.
All you. It's all you, buddy.
Okay. I don't know who had it first, Mark or Rita.
I don't.
Rita, go ahead. Go ahead. You're new. We'll give you a
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
discount.
I am making a motion that the list of bills payable should be sent to all board members every month. In addition, every board member should be allowed to ask questions and the response should be sent to all the board members. However, we should keep the 3 board members every month to certify it. This is important since all 9 board members vote on the bills every month. I feel uncomfortable voting on lists of bills that I have no ability to see or question.
Okay, you made a motion.
Second.
Okay, second for Vlad. Okay. I thought this might come up, so I'm going to speak first. I understand where you're coming from, Rita, but we have a process in place that's way above and beyond anything most other districts do in regard to bills reviewed by the
I have to start reading.
Education. What?
I apologize.
And what we do is we have a committee, 3 people, an ad hoc committee, so to speak, and they review the bills every month, 3 board members. Besides that, the bills are all looked at and approved by the business office. So if we were going to have every board member review every bill every month, and there's hundreds of them, the list you have there's so many bills that we would spend an inordinate amount of time, board members, any administration. There has to be a certain amount of trust that you have in your fellow board members and in your administration, that you know that 3 board members that are on this team are going to look at the bills, and if there are questions, they can ask them. And when it's your turn to do it, you can do it. But doing it the way you want to, that you move to do it, would waste a tremendous amount of the administration's time. And the bills are repetitive. Almost every month, the bills are exactly the same. We're paying for tires. We're buying school supplies. We're paying phone bills. So I just think it's a bad idea. And we're in the weeds. That's not really the Board of Education's job to go through every line item of every bill. That's not our job. We paid an administration to do that. All right. Anybody else want to make a comment on this? Vlad, Mike?
Hi. In terms of that, we're going above and beyond what most other districts do. I don't know, of course, but I did talk to one other district, and they do exactly that. They send the bills payable every month to every board member, so every board member can ask questions if they wish to do so. Most of the time, they don't ask questions, but they have the opportunity to do so. So that's first. Second, Jean, I completely agree with you that most bills are repetitive. Like you said, we're paying for phones every month. We're paying for like our pension contributions every month, and so on. So, like you remember, my first month, my first time I reviewed the bills, I asked many questions, and then it kind of decreased every time, and now I ask only 2 questions. So I expect this to be the case with every new board member. Once maybe Rita will next time ask 20 questions. But since most bills are repetitive, maybe the next month she'll ask only 5 questions. So I think that request is reasonable.
Okay. Was Mike and then Wilkin.
So I have mixed feelings about this, but the one thing I'm going to say is that we have a budget that is made up every year, and it's the superintendent's job and the business administrator's job. It's actually a business administrator's job, but the buck always stops at the superintendent to make sure that he is within the budget, and the purchases that are made have been budgeted for or brought before the Board of Education. Brought before the Board of Education if it wasn't budgeted for. So to start nitpicking every bill or certain bills even, I don't know if that's particularly our job. And I don't think it's a good practice because, again, we have a very good business administrator who's on top of, it's her responsibility to sign every purchase order. So there's a system in place, like Gene said. So I really honestly don't necessarily agree with the motion.
Wilkin, you're up.
Yes, thank you. I apologize. I was just making sure my daughter was reading. Look, yeah, I agree with Mr. Itkin. The new board members ask a lot of questions, and maybe that is not of the like of some people. I remember when I was new, I was asking a lot of questions. But it doesn't, I respectfully disagree with Mr. Itkin. It has nothing to do with being new or not being new. Any board member, well, yes and no. Any board member who wants to see the bills should not be told by the administration that you cannot see a bill. One, it's not legal. Two, it sends a really bad message. That no, don't look at the bill. Why? Now I really want to look at the bill. You know what? Because we are elected officials. Okay? So we have a responsibility. We are the fiduciary for the community. So if we want to look at a bill, we need to look at a bill. And I am not going to judge a board member and think when they want to see something, it's because they need picking. We are sacrificing hours of our family's time. I don't think any of you are going to take hours and hours to look at a bill, to nitpick something, because this is not a got you. We're doing our job. And if Ms. Favelevic wants to look at a bill next month and it's not her turn, what is the harm? You know what? If anything, that is very good practice, because perhaps those who were supposed to look at the bills during a particular month, perhaps they didn't look at every single bill, and we have hundreds. Perhaps they didn't look at every single. The more eyes, the better. And if there's nothing there, there should be no fear. There should be no fear. And again, we're going back to this. I don't want to even imagine that there is a subculture of lack of transparency. And I know, I hope, and I know, and I pray that's not the case. So let's act like that's not the case, and let's be welcoming to,
Julie, I'm gonna let Nick go first, Julie.
So let's just,
I support the motion.
let's talk about what actually happened, because we haven't talked about it. There's a process in place and a practice in Fair Lawn Forever that's backed up by policy. And that's important for everybody to know, especially people at home that are watching this. 3 board members every month review the bills. Yes, I approve the bills. No, I don't approve the bills, or I have questions on the bills. The next month, 3 new board members review the bills. And every month it changes. This is the way it's happened in Fair Lawn for a very, very long time. I think the policy goes back to 2012, the last time it was revised. We probably should take another look at it. Regardless, that is our policy. That is the practice that has been happening in Fair Lawn forever. So when one person asked for the bills this week, we had said, that's not the practice, because 3 people do it. The other board members, there's a trust factor on the board that those 3 board members reviewed it. They were good with it. And then the bills are on the agenda. So it wasn't the typical practice this week. When Gene and I spoke about it, we said the same thing that everybody's saying here. What's the difference? You want them? Here you go. Yes, they are a public document. So we gave them to that person, even though it's not the practice and the policy that we have been following forever. We did it that one time. Now it's up to the board what you want to decide. So yes, to Vlad's point, I'm sure there is a district out there that does give it to all their board members, but I probably know 9 that don't give it to their board members. For everyone. I know that my previous 2 districts I worked in, no board members reviewed the bills. It was up to the administration, and then they were on there, and it was trusted. there's no lack of transparency. There's no transparency. There's no conspiracy theories. There's nothing we have to worry about. But I'll leave it up to the board. But I think it's important for everybody to know the facts about what happened. 3 people reviewed the bills this month. 1 person asked for them. That wasn't the norm of the 3 people that reviewed it. That's why we didn't give it right away, because we were like, this is not how we kind of do the practice or the policy. But we just said, Gene and I looked at this, what's the difference? We gave it to that 1 person. But it's not our practice or our policy. So if you want to change it to the board, go ahead. It's up to you.
Julie, and then Rita, I'll let you say your last piece.
So Rita, I can absolutely appreciate, as a newer board member, wanting to learn and grow from all of this. You and I are actually in that same triad, and we aren't set to review the bills until March. I wonder if you might consider having both of us, because I know that Brooke was already planning to do a crash course with us and meet with us. Maybe we do that in the next 2 weeks, since the kids are going back. If you would feel comfortable doing, a socially distant meeting with Brooke, we can set that up. And then if the February group would consider swapping with us, we can then revisit it after, our team gets to review the bills. That way you get a handle and I get a handle on doing so. And then we can hold off on the motion. That way you and I can both learn and grow together as newer board members and get what we need from our business administrator, and then get the opportunity to review the bills and see if this policy does require an amendment.
Thanks, Julie. Rita, you want to say one last thing?
Yeah, I'm not nitpicking. I gained on the board because I truly want to look at things, understand things, and I'm spending a lot of my personal time trying to understand things. And I'm asking for the bills. I wasn't asking to nitpick. If I have a question on 1 or 2 bills, that shouldn't be a problem. When we have an agenda, we have questions, and all our questions are answered by their superintendent. So what's the big deal if they pull out 1 or 2 bills payable, say, this is the bills payable. They don't even have to explain. It's all documented. It's all scanned in. It takes 30 seconds for them to send it to me. If it's that, and I don't think that's a lot of work, 30 seconds just to pull it out. They don't even have to explain it to me. Here's the bill. You want to see it? Here you go. And it's just transparency. That's all I want.
Ryan, you didn't say anything to say, right? Go ahead.
No, I did not say anything. I just want to state that I understand Rita's point, and Wilkins, I don't agree with it. As Nick stated, we have a policy. I'm really getting a little. It's not worrying about transparency, because again, we have things in place, and as board members, yes, we are the fiduciaries, but we don't micromanage this district. We make sure that we have the right people in administration to do the job. And if we don't, and we see any discrepancies, we just had an audit, we didn't see any, then that's our job to question it. Absolutely. You want to question a couple bills too. I personally am not going to look at, and I've been on the board, this is my 10th year, starting my 10th year. I'm not going through hundreds of bills, which a lot of them are repetitive. Okay. And the same thing, that if we as a committee or as a board don't agree with something to purchase, that's fine. We need stuff to run this district, to maintain our buildings, to maintain our grounds. And if we have to purchase that, as long as our BA budgets that and knows that, which she does an excellent job along with Pat, her assistant, of foreseeing down the line that, in a couple of years, just like school buses every 10 years have to be removed. So when we have to buy school buses, rather than buying 5 at once and spending $12 million, we try to plan it out over a period of time. So if a person wants 1 or 2 bills, fine. I think we still keep the policy that we're doing and the way we do it. And I just wanted to make that clarified, because I don't agree with the motion. Thank you.
No, Wilkins, you already spoke.
According to the rules, you can speak twice on the topic.
Are you going to use your other 3 minutes now? Because I'm not giving another 5 and 8 minutes later for more.
I'm just going by the procedures. When there's a
The
motion.
procedure is 5 minutes and 3 minutes, right?
When
you spoke already.
But we're talking about, we're discussing a motion. That does not count for the allowed time.
Yeah, all right, go ahead. I don't want to get in a.
Very brief, Mr. Banta, very brief. I'm not nitpicking, very brief. A policy should not, and I'm not an attorney, a policy should not be in disagreement with the law. If we have a policy that it's in disagreement with the law, we need to look at the policy immediately and change it to make sure the policy agrees with the law. So if our policies, excuse me, if our policy says that only 3 board members can view it, but according to Oprah, if a citizen of Fairlawn wants to Oprah every single bill every single month, a board member elected by the community should also have the same right under the law. So if we have a policy that does not agree, and you are an attorney, Mr. Banca, and I think you probably will agree with this point. If we have a policy that is not in agreement with a state law, then we seriously need to change that policy. And I'm prepared to make a motion to do so.
Well, let's make one motion at a time, please.
I just want to, I do want to clarify a point. I said that we have a policy and we have a practice that we've been following. I was very clear by saying we have a policy and a practice. So our policy may not say, quote unquote, 3 people review the bills on a monthly basis, because it does not say that. And I know it does not say that, but we have a policy that speaks about reviewing the bills. And we have a long-standing practice here in Fairlawn that 3 board members review it on a monthly basis, and it rotates. That's why I was very clear when I said we have a policy and a practice. Just want to clarify. So we may not have to change the policy, but that's for another conversation right now. As Gene said, we have a motion on the table.
All right, I'm gonna say one last thing also. I'm gonna try and get mind of Matt Lee, our NJSBA rep, and I can almost guarantee you, he would tell us it is not our job to review every single bill every month. We have an administration, we have a business office, we have a superintendent, you have an assistant superintendent, assistant business administrator. So for us to be diving into these things is not our job. We've been doing it for a long time. All right. I'll let the motion go through, see what happens. In the meantime, I'm going to write to Matt Lee. I'm going to get his opinion. And if he agrees that, hey, every board member should get every bill every month because that's, you're an elected official, then we'll do that. If he says, no, Gene, listen, I've been down this road before, and I think you're micromanaging, which is, I think, is what he's going to say, then we'll have to have another discussion. And, you're saying everybody should get it. Well, she did get it. She got it a day after she asked for it. So
no, that's not true. I got it 4 days after. I only got it yesterday. I asked for it on Saturday.
Okay, well, Saturday and Sunday don't count because we should not be bothering the superintendent on the weekends for things like this. And Rita, I'm not picking on you because the whole board does it. He's getting emails 10 o'clock at night. He's getting emails on Christmas. He's getting phone calls on the day his father's getting buried about grass cuttings. So that's a different subject. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get off on that. But I first heard about it on Monday, Tuesday, and you got it Wednesday. So, or maybe, I don't remember.
No, I got it today.
Oh, you got it today. Okay. So I'm not going to count Monday and I'm not going to count Saturday and Sunday. But anyway, I'm going to talk to Matt Lee and see what he has to say because he's the guru on this and he can tell us if we're out of line or not. Now, in the meantime, can I have a roll call on it?
Dean, I have my hand up.
Mark,
I'm sorry. Mark had his hand up. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm looking at it a little differently. I want to know from Paul, what is our liability if when we're checking these bills, if we overlook something and there's something that goes awry?
There's no individual board member liability on that part. If something mistakenly paid, then that can usually be corrected. There's rarely any liability associated with bill payments. The other question I would, as long as I've got the mic for a second, I would raise a procedural question, which is the member has made a motion that we have a specific policy. I think the appropriate approach to this would not be that we have the policy so much as that it be sent to the policy committee for development of a policy along that line, since you would have to draft the policy up.
Don't we have the policy? You're just using a practice?
Yeah, the policy is silent as far as I know on how the board reviews it. It
All right,
basically
Brooke,
deals with this review of claims. So I'm just raising that question.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Okay, Mr. Barbarulo.
What is the language we're voting on? What is it that you're stating?
That every board member gets a copy of the bill list every month, and then they can contact the superintendent to discuss or ask questions about every bill that they want.
Not every bill.
No, wait. Rita. The way I understand your motion is every board member is going to get a list of every bill, get a list of the bills. Then that board member, in theory, as Mr. Santana said, can ask a question about every single bill. That is what I can't say to you, or maybe I can, well, you can ask one question.
You froze.
You're going to get a copy of the bills every month, okay? And then every board member can then ask a question, and the 3 board member thing, I guess, just going to go out the window. But Brooke, you can distill that down into something more in English. Okay, Brooke, go ahead.
Okay. Mr. Barbarulo,
No.
Mrs. Favelovich,
Yes.
Mr. Itkin,
Yes.
Mrs. Mahan,
No.
Ms. Quackenbush,
No,
Mr. Rosenberg,
stop shaking
No.
your head at me.
No.
Mr. Santana,
Yes.
Mr. Spindell,
No.
Mr. Banta.
No. Okay. Any other questions, comments from the board? Other business? Mark?
Yes. I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, are aware after reading the article in the community news about the new development that they were planning in Radburn, where the Deals building is.
Right.
It lists it as being studios, 1 and 2 bedroom apartments, well over 150 units. Do we have a liaison on the board that is involved in these discussions to tell them our views of how this is going to drastically interfere with our current schools and, how it's going to have an effect on us?
I'm not sure if we still have a liaison on the board. I believe Elise sat in that capacity in the past, but I will tell you that I know that Mr. Banta and myself,
Ron and Cindy, I got you.
have shared the same concerns with Mayor Peluso and with several other councilmen and women. And we talked about potentially having a meeting to discuss our concerns about that project. But Gene?
Well, Nick, you're right. You and I both spoke to the mayor, and as he told me, this is one of many proposals that they've gotten the past few years for that piece of property. And what he's told them, or what they come to know somehow, these various people who are proposing these things, is that anything with more than 2 bedrooms is not going to be approved in any way, shape, or form because of the issue with putting the pressure on schools, especially over in that part of town where we have the larger population. So we're going to talk to him about it again. I don't know about a liaison. I think when we brought this up a couple of years ago, that the mayor said, look, you can come to any meeting you want. And I think Brooke gets information about when things pop up. So if we want to go to a meeting, if it comes up, I don't know when the next planning board meeting is, but I think the last one might have conflicted with something we were doing. But we'll keep in touch with the mayor, and he knows perfectly well that, and all the council members know that anything bigger than that is going to be a big problem for us. All right, so it was Ron and Cindy.
Yes, when I was president, I did speak to Mayor Peluso, but I also had a conversation with Mayor Peluso, which was very disturbing because the zoning board rezoned Fairlawn Avenue, rezoned River Road, and rezoned Broadway to allow retail and apartments. And I said to the mayor, I says, I did not understand how we allowed the zoning board to do this when we've had this discussion, and also being on the open space committee. I've had it with him of why you would continue to allow it. And he said the same thing. Well, this is only 1 bedroom. I says, that's what they told us about Radburn Crossings. I says, and that didn't work. And as far as Brooke getting it, I know for a fact that there was some things they did not send over to us. the lease used to sit on the community committee that's involved with like redevelopment. But it is something very serious because what the council is trying to do is the more building they do, the more ratables they get, and that's the less tax increases as the town does. So, and of course, makes us look like, you know, the bad guys, but that's how they're avoiding the tax increases. So, I mean, it's something that we seriously have to. I sent it out in the finance and buildings and grounds report. We did another demographic report. We're going to have to do probably another one with all the changes in it, but this is a very serious situation because I could just tell you just real quick, I work in Wayne Township and they were sued by a couple builders and stuff. And in the next 3 to 5 years, they're going to be adding over 1,000 apartments. And I told them, I said, I have no idea where you're going to put these in the schools, but it's something that we really have to keep track of with the town. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Cindy?
You said it before that there was many proposals going on. I don't know that this one is lock, stock, and barrel. I don't think it's going to go through. But Elise used to sit on the committee, the community committee for Broadway redevelopment. I know that committee is what she sat on, but I don't know if there is, I guess, what meeting would we attend that this is brought up? Is it planning or is it zoning or is it both?
I don't know.
Start, that's my question. At what?
It would be planning. It would be planning first. Zoning, it goes to zoning when they have to change what they want to build if it's not allowed in that area, but it usually goes to planning first.
Okay.
All right. Well, Nick, why don't you and I get back in touch with the mayor and see if we can talk to him.
Sounds good.
Vlad.
In general, maybe we should get like a listing of all existing multi-units, apartment buildings that already exist, that are being built, that are being planned, open spaces in town, and look at it kind of comprehensively, the whole picture, and try to see what's ahead of us. Is it something that the demographic study will do?
No, the demographic study just tells you based on housing now and maybe anything that's actually on the books to be built, that, and they will project out your enrollment growth over the next 5 years. But not anything, they don't count anything that's like still in the planning stages. Like if this thing over in by deals, it's just right now it's an idea. So if we do a demographic study, it's not going to count that. Whereas if it's breaking ground or it's approved, then they would count it. So anything that's only in the planning stages is not going to be part of the demographic study.
Then I kind of want to throw it out for discussion. Just an idea, should we do it ourselves if it's not done by demographic study? I'm certainly willing to contribute my efforts to this.
I'm not sure we would do what ourselves.
Expand the demographic study to look at things that demographic study will not look at.
No, wait, you got to be a demographer to do demographic study. I mean, you're really good with numbers, Vlad, but I'm not sure you're a demographer. That's a whole different set of numbers. I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you can make any kind of demographic projection based on, maybe they're going to build this here, maybe they're going to build that there, and put that together with what we already have. I'll ask the demographer, or Nick can ask the demographer, but I don't think you can be done.
We could follow up and ask him.
Yeah. Julie.
Just want to remind everyone that similarly to the way our meetings are held virtually, so are the boroughs. All of their meetings are held virtually. If you check the town website as well as all their social media accounts, it is posted, and I attend every single one virtually right now because there's such ease to it. And anybody who has questions or concerns, our mayor, our deputy mayor, and all of our council people are extraordinarily responsive.
And I agree with that, Julie. They have been very responsive. Okay. I think everybody's spoken at some point, right? Okay.
Mike.
All right. Wait, I don't know who had your hand up first, but I think Wilkin's been a while since you spoke. Wilkin, Mike, Ron.
Yes. Have just some brief comments. in regards, in regards to the plans, in the initial conversation of the meetings, you know, plans, in my view as a board member, the plans have to be based on the ability for the taxpayers to pay. You know,
And look, I'm not clear what plan you're talking about. You're talking about the projected plan in deals or something else?
I'm going there. Okay.
Okay.
I have heard tonight in the beginning of the meeting, the mention of plans. You know, the district have plans. We have budgets. We budget for this. We have plans. Well, as a board member, this is my view. The plans have to be adjusted based on the ability for the taxpayers to pay. Just as with this development, and I happen to live very nearby that proposed furlong redevelopment of that property. And, again, those plans that the community is hearing about and the council will be hearing about have to be adjusted to the ability of our district to handle this, because it's gonna get it, and I have said this many times, that what's coming down the pipe is not going to be looking good down the years. My term is up this year. Those of you who your term is not going to expire this year, you're going to see what I have been saying behind doors and in public meetings, that if we don't get a hold of this, it's going to get worse before it even gets better. I also have heard tonight that what increases that may be allowed. But my view is this: it might be allowed, we may be allowed to increase taxes, but under a pandemic, it is not advisable. Now, I also heard tonight of many concerns with policies changes in light of the Department of Education in the state updating state standards. I know not just the physical education, but I know the world language standard was updated last June 2020. I know and I hope that the district it's ready for to revise all the curriculum that need to be revised to reflect the updates in the standards, because those updates call for the Board of Education to ensure that the curriculums are updated. So it's part of our obligation. Now, I know no one mentioned it, but there is a development also on Broadway, okay, with many apartments being discussed. Next week, February starts. It is Black History Month. I hope this board can adopt a resolution to honor Black History Month, and I intend to bring the resolution back for another shot at approving it. And I hope approving Black History Month, a resolution honoring Black History Month, is not something controversial, because it's not controversial outside of the Board of Education. So I hope we can get 5 votes, because I will be bringing it at the next board meeting, a resolution to honor Black History Month. And just to end, I just would like to say thank you to Mr. Jean for being very gracious in handling the meeting, especially how you allow the member of the public, Ms. Harari, to go over her time. And thank you. You're doing a wonderful job.
Okay, thank you. What do you say, Mike? Mike and then Ron is what I said before?
I just want to remind the board, if they comment at a public meeting of the planning board or the council meeting, that they're speaking for themselves and not for the board, unless the board gave them permission to do that.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Ron?
I'm sorry. I just wanted to bring one thing up. Monday night, they had the Bergen County School Board's meeting. And I I was there. Vlad was on it also. I exchanged notes. I took tons of notes. I gave them to Vlad. He's going to give a report to the rest of the board. But one thing I just wanted to bring up, and I assume, Brooke, that you know about this now, but the lovely state, because this came from your president of your BA's association, basically has told every district in New Jersey that you're on your own and put it in your budget for PPEs. So anything going forward that you need to do for COVID or any type of PPEs or anything that you're going to do related to it has to be in your budget. They are not giving you any money. So I just wanted everybody to understand that. That's one of the things. And I'll tell you what, it was a really, really, really good meeting, very informative. And when you get your reports, you'll see it. And I assume Mr. Icken will give his report to the rest of the board publicly next month. But I just wanted to bring that one point up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, I think everybody's spoken. Can I have a motion to recess into closed session?
So moved.
We're not going to be coming, we're not going to be coming back out. We're going to be discussing personnel matters, student matters, and legal matters in the closed session. Everybody has a link. All the board members have a link to the closed session. And let's take a 5-minute break. See you in 5 minutes.
Bye.
Jean, before you sign off,
Yeah.
we've been leaving the closed session. We've been coming back into open and then adjourning from the open session.
Oh, okay. All right. So we'll come back just to adjourn.
Yes.
There's not going to be any more public vote tonight.
No. Yep.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
in session to close from there.
The proper way to do it is to start and end the meeting in open session.
Okay, no, Paul, I'm just asking because, you know,
Yeah.
over the years, we used to just close session, make a motion to go home, and we went.
Right.
Yes.
So I was just
Yeah.
curious, that's all. All right, thank you.
No, we would open the door.
We just take the vote. It's really late. I want to go home. I love everyone.
Well, we don't want you to go home. All right, just for the
Sleep
record,
there.
when's the next public meeting, Brooke? I don't have the schedule in front of me.
February 11th is a work session on district goals. February 22nd is going to be our regular monthly meeting.
Okay,
March 11th is our work session on the budget. March 18th, we're rescheduling our monthly meeting. That will be our preliminary adoption of the budget. And then April 29th, we have the next rescheduled monthly meeting. So there was 2 dates in March that were affected by the budget and the state guidelines in the calendar. It's in that agenda. It's updated. We are
Okay.
going to advertise all of that in one shot in our newspaper advertisements.
okay.
And then we'll advertise again for the budget when we. get to
All
that.
in the information that I emailed on Monday, and it's all on the agenda.
Okay, and I just want to tell Denise, you know, you talked way too much tonight. We can't have that. Look how late this meeting is run because of you.
I'm a good listener. I'm a good listener.
All right, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I have a question about the meetings, if I may, the dates. Mr. Banta, maybe Mr. Norcia or Ms. Bartley with the budget. When are we having the committee meetings for the budget?
It was in my meeting. It was in my email that I sent out on Monday.
The list of the committee
It
dates?
says that we didn't break down the specific committees, but I said it'll be the Monday and the.
Oh, you didn't break, okay, that's
We don't
why.
have an
week in
exact
March.
date, but okay.
Yeah.
It's March 1st and March 4th.
But they're not broken down by
No.
specific committees, so we won't know which date.
No, not yet. We'll do that over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, that's what I need to know. And before I forget, Mr. Norcia, thank you so much for a very quick response to some set of questions that I emailed you.
No
I was
worries.
expecting the answers 2 to 3 weeks from now. You gave me the answers super
You
fast,
got it.
unexpected, unbelievable. Thank you very much.
No worries. Thanks to Dr. Lacatina.
Make a motion to,
Adjourn.
To go
Second.
home.
Idea. All in favor?
Aye, aye.
Aye.
See you
My lights
later,
are off at home.
alligator.
There's no lights out
Stay
here.
safe, everyone.
Night all.
Night.
Stay safe.
Good night.
Thank you, Tech, for all your help.